Greetings. This is Dr. Della Welch presenting today constitutional law. It's important to understand the basics of the three branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch. And these branches are very important because they serve as a check and balance, so that no one branch of government becomes too strong. Also, it protects individual rights by limiting the action that the government can do and protecting the rights of the individual. Now, we have federal law and state law. What we have is Article 1, Section 8, and that is the federal enumerated powers. And those powers include such things as to declare war, to establish post offices, but the big one is in Article 1, Section 8, which is the enumerated powers of the government that you need to know. And then the states ask, where does the states get their power? They get their power from the 10th Amendment. It's also called the state's police power. I have a mnemonic for that. Who stole my wife? And that would be taking the H from who: health, safety, morals, and welfare. So if the state government is acting, they must be acting pursuant to one of those powers. And it's important to understand the difference between the enumerated powers of the federal government and then all other powers going to the state. It's also important when we think of the balance of powers of Article 1 and the Article 2 and Article 3, the three branches of government, to know that if there's a dispute between the three branches of government, it is the Supreme Court to say what the law is. And the first case to apply this was Marbury, M-A-R-B-U-R-Y, versus Madison, M-A-D-I-S-O-N. And recently, this occurred in the Bush versus Gore situation, and that was the one that determined who should be president. Now, if you look at the Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment, they provide due process. The Fifth Amendment is the federal due process clause, and the 14th Amendment is the state due process clause. Now, when you look at the 14th Amendment, it came out of the Civil War with the discrimination against blacks, and it has first an equal protection clause, which means we don't treat people similarly situated differently. And then it has a due process clause, which includes a notice and a hearing. When discussing due process, it's important to know the legal term substantive due process. That is the what. What does the law say? What rights are created? And these rules cannot be overly broad, and a reasonable person must be able to understand them. And the procedural due process is the how. And the how would be a notice and a hearing. So that is important. Someone cannot deprive you, the government cannot deprive you of life, liberty, and property without giving you due process of the law. Now, there are very important amendments. The first 10 amendments are called the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment is freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion. Freedom of religion includes an establishment clause. The government cannot establish a religion, say that all of you must become Catholic or Lutheran or something. And they cannot interfere with the free exercise of religion. If you want to exercise your religion, you will be able to do that. You also have the right of peaceable assembly under the First Amendment and to petition the government for various grievances. Now, one thing to remember is the First Amendment is not absolute. We cannot yell fire in a crowded theater. We cannot say fighting words. So there's limits on that freedom of speech. The Fourth Amendment protects from unreasonable search and seizure. It's not all searches and seizures, it's unreasonable search and seizures. The Fifth Amendment, as we said, had a due process clause, also has a double jeopardy clause. You cannot be tried twice criminally for the same offense. However, you may be tried civilly and criminally, as O.J. was, and that is not double jeopardy. The big one of the Fifth Amendment is the protection against self-incrimination. Also under the Fifth Amendment, the government cannot take private property without providing you just compensation. This often comes up in cases of adverse possession. The Sixth Amendment is your rights in a criminal trial, which is trial by jury and other rights of the accused. So in a criminal case, very important in our country, are various rights. And the Seventh Amendment talks about civil trials by jury. So in the next tape, we will continue on and we will discuss further the various amendments.